to roll over Bartram. Now, I could be wrong. Bartram could come out there and win the game. Would I be surprised if Bartram won it? I would have to say no. I wouldn't be surprised because I don't think Lee could just wake up out their sleep, get dressed, and beat them. I do think a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work been put into this week to get the victory. But I do think talent-wise, Lee got enough. I think their defense gonna just like smack Bartram around. And I do think Aaron Jones and Eric Weatherly going to have big games because they just got the type of speed that, you know what I'm saying, that just allow you to do things that others can't do. And it don't matter who you're playing against with that type of speed right there, you're going to be able to get out. You feel me?
All right.
But I just think the defense, like, head and shoulders above anything that Bartram, like, used to facing. You feel me? And going back to the Armwood game, like I said, I thought Lee's defense did a heck of a job. It's just I felt like the offense let them down. So if they take that same type of defensive performance and just get 1% better or a step better from last week, Bartram not going to want to see that defense. That guy Ralph Vincent coming off that edge. I mean, he was a sack machine. And but Lee offense just got to step up, which I think Coach Small will make the necessary adjustments, put the right people in the right places to get it done. And outside of Eric Weatherly and Aaron Jones, I just don't see Bartram having enough to take out a team like Lee.
I'm going to lean a close one. I will go with Lee in a close one here, only because I'm not so because like I know that Bartram. I met with Lee. They have a very good secondary. It's going to be hard for Bartram to try to pass on them. Lee's defense will probably be a little bit more susceptible to the run. I just don't know how good of a running game Bartram had. They did not look to have a very strong running game overall when I saw them in the spring, and because of that, I'm going to lean Lee in a close one. I would not be surprised if Bartram won it though. And this is
be surprised.
This is also the matchup I'm going to look at for. I'm definitely going to. I'll probably try to watch this game like between flipping back and forth with this one and another game that we'll talk about shortly. In St. Francis at Miami Central.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge matchup. I'm eager to see what St. Francis got. To tell you the truth, I've been hearing a lot about them. Yeah, they this juggernaut team from like the D.C., Baltimore area. Don't quite know where they from, but I've been just hearing like, yeah, man, this St. Francis team, they something like an IMG. They real good, and people saying they would have like smacked Lee last year. But I'm eager to see how they do against Central, or eager to see how Central do against them, I should say.
From what I saw of St. Francis in the past 2 years, I do feel like they probably would have beaten Lee very convincingly last year. But speaking of that matchup, we'll just go ahead and hit it on it now. St. Francis at Miami Central. We did our picks last week when we had our out-of-state games. We all end up picking St. Francis across the board. Do you have is there any, are you going to lean St. Francis as well, or do you think Central can pull it out?
I wouldn't doubt Central could pull it out, but if St. Francis anything like I've been hearing, I would just blindly pick a St. Francis. It's like an IMG. It's like I'm going to blindly pick them, and it's almost like, even though, David may have what it take to beat Goliath, but you're just one of those you got to prove it things. And from what I've been hearing, that's what kind of team they is. They sort of like an IMG, like. So with that being said, like, you just have to prove it. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna just pick St. Francis just on a blind pick, just by saying they just stacked and loaded with talent. They the IMG of the DC area.
On paper, I would say St. Francis is probably talent-wise on the same level as IMG, maybe even a little bit better. So that it's going to be a tough matchup for Miami Central. They are at home, and they're playing at noon in the South Florida heat. But trying to beat St. Francis, that's going to be a challenge. That'll be probably the toughest game they play during the season.
And let me ask you this: is St. Francis a football factory, or is it just like a private school with a bunch of great players? Like, what would you?
It's kind of tough to describe. They were in a private league at one point in the Baltimore area, and then last year, like all the teams in their league basically forfeit and refused to play them, so they basically just award them the championship before the season because none of them would play them. They basically said it was unfair playing advantage.
Yeah. So there's really no real way to classify them as like a private school like St. Thomas Aquinas, Trinity, or personally, what would you say they are? IMG or Trinity?
I would say probably like IMG.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. People have been saying they're like a football factory, but I had yet to actually see them play though.
Speaking of IMG, IMG is going to be traveling to play Venice. This one should be interesting. Venice did look pretty good against Plant last week, but stepping up from Plant to IMG is a complete, huge jump.
Yeah, and I don't actually know what Venice got coming off that state championship win a couple years ago. They just completely fell off the map since then. So I would definitely expect IMG to roll big over them.
I feel like there's a slim chance Venice keeps it close, but I would have I'm definitely picking IMG in this game.
And when you say close, we talking what?
Maybe
3 scores, 4 scores?
Maybe 14, 17 points.
Okay. So a 2-score win nonetheless, though.
Yeah, I just don't feel like Venice is going to have necessarily enough to beat them. It's just a very huge talent gap, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely a huge talent gap on Venice.
St. Thomas Aquinas heading to De La Salle. I believe that's tonight. Actually, I was trying to look for it on ESPN. And I was like, "Where is this game?" But I didn't. I was looking on Saturday, not Friday. We picked De La Salle across the board last week in our picks. Are you going to be taking Aquinas or De La Salle?
Yeah, I'm going to take Aquinas in that.
All right.
I just think Aquinas, they track record of playing against those teams from the West Coast and the Northwest area and the Pacific Northwest area. They just got a great track record of playing against those teams, and those De La Salle teams. They triple option run heavy. They got a lot of great athletes, and if you let them, get rolling earlier with that run game, it can get ugly for you. But I think St. Thomas Aquinas beat De La Salle.
All right.
A lot of bragging rights going to go into that game though. Florida against California.
One of the main reasons I ended up picking against Aquinas had a lot to do with my questions at their quarterback position, though. If you look at the moment if I completely just ignore the quarterback position and look at the talent at the other positions, Aquinas has a huge edge over De La Salle. So I would not be surprised if they found a way to get around that quarterback issue and still find a way to beat De La Salle, even on De La Salle's turf.
Yeah, because St. Thomas, I think they got the type of offense, bunch of jet sweeps, screens. They got the type of offense that they just want to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. So if they coach could simplify the offense for the quarterback to just do that right there, I think they should be able to go out there to California and get that victory.
And the last of the ESPN games that we have involving Florida, Deerfield Beach, I'm going to be playing in Traz Powell in a part of that doubleheader with St. Francis and Miami Central against Carroll City. Deerfield Beach, as always, seems to be very loaded in talent. So is Carroll City. There's going to be a lot of talent on the field at the same time when those two play. I'm going to lean Carroll City in this one. I do feel like Deerfield Beach is a team that, could potentially, if they fall through with their potential, could end up being the future 8A state champs. The question is, will they? But in terms of Carroll City, they're also just as talented. And from what I've been hearing, the quarterback for Deerfield Beach, the better quarterback, is currently injured and not playing. And there's still question marks with the current quarterback at Deerfield Beach.
But I definitely take care of that trash power by them being the home team.
All right. Some other games that we got. We mentioned a little bit before we got on the show with Godby at Lincoln. In this one, sorry. I'm gonna have to lean Lincoln in this one. I still want to see how Godby adjust under a new coach. I feel like Lincoln has under their coach slowly started to take a step forward. They're probably not. They're not. They're early 2000, late 90s Lincoln by any stretch, but they are climbing up a little bit more. So I'm gonna lean Lincoln in this game.
Yeah, I lean Lincoln. Lincoln consistent second, third round team. They've been pretty consistent over the last couple of years. Godby as well, but I lean Lincoln. I believe they got a good quarterback and a couple nice pieces. I seen them play against Range last year. Range beat them, but they had a couple nice pieces. They took out Oakleaf in the first round of the playoffs. Controversial game, but nonetheless, Lincoln got the victory. So I would lean towards Lincoln as well.
Another one, this has basically become a bit of a rivalry down in Brevard County. Viera at Cocoa. Viera has been the larger school, but for basically in this matchup, Cocoa has basically had their number for the last few years, for the most part. So I'm going to lean Cocoa in this one. Two very good teams, and Cocoa's at home. It's hard to pick against them.
Yeah, I don't know much about Viera other than they made a deep playoff run a couple years back. So if I was to blindly pick that game, I would go with Cocoa just because I know Cocoa always stay loaded with talent across the board, crazy run games every year. So if I would, like I say, to blindly pick that game, I would go with Cocoa. And Viera could come out and roll them, but I just don't know anything about them. I believe they took out Columbia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But
very tough memories.
Yeah. But outside of that right there, I just don't really know much about Viera. Viera Hawks, correct? They call it Hawks?
Viera Hawks.
Yeah. I don't really know too much about them outside of that game. They took out Columbia, but like I said, if I was to blindly pick that game, I'd go with Cocoa.
Another one that should be a pretty good game in Central Florida. Wekiva traveling to play Winter Park. With Wekiva, I really thought with Rick Darlington leaving Apopka that this was going to lead to a mass transfer movement from Apopka to Wekiva. That is not what I've been hearing, and it's actually caught me a little by surprise. Winter Park has been always been a very solid team that probably doesn't get the credit they deserve, simply because they just haven't really been able to get a very deep run, or they're not always the big media name in Central Florida. I'm going to lean Winter Park in this one. I feel like they should talent-wise be able to hang with Wekiva.
If I had to pick that game right there, just based off last year and my recent memories of both teams, I think Wekiva had a great season last year.
They lost a lot, though.
Well. Oh, they lost a lot.
Yeah, they lost a lot of people on their defense from last year graduated.
Yeah, because I know they had a great defense last year. I know they had a terrific defense. Just talking to a couple Mandarin guys, they said that that Wekiva game was one of the best defenses that they had faced the entire season. They said Columbus had a great offense, but Wekiva had a terrific defense. You know what I'm saying? So it was really hard for them to scratch and claw that victory out. And so if I had to stay with it, although they lost a lot, if I had to stay with it, don't know what Winter Park returning either though. So another blind pick, I go with Wekiva though.
All right. We mentioned them a little bit earlier. Lakeland will be traveling to play Manatee. This should be a pretty good matchup. They're both 7A schools, but they're on the opposite ends of the bracket. But from what I've been seeing, Lakeland, they bring back their that star running back, Bowman, if I remember his name correctly. I hope I pronounced it right. They
I don't know too much about it.